ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the study of the life of household disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. We were studying the life of Sri Ramachandra Datta. Now we will continue from where we had left in the last class. After coming in touch with Sri Ramakrishna and due to the contact, association and satsanga, gradually Ram, that is Ramachandra Datta, began to get a taste of divine bliss because of his holy association with the Master. And naturally, the worldly pleasures became more and more insipid to him. He expressed to the Master his desire to become a monk, but Sri Ramakrishna dissuaded him, saying, nothing should be done on the spur of the moment. Nothing should be done on the spur of the moment. God alone knows what He means to do through a particular person. We have to know that these are the words of Ramakrishna telling that God alone knows what He means to do through a particular person. God has plans for each individual. You have to play our role. Every human being in the creation of God is unique. So never underestimate your strength. So we are all in the creation of God. We have some uniqueness, some specialness. So we have to maintain that. We should never feel inferior, or we should never think our surroundings, our work which we are doing is bad or inferior. So remember the words of Sri Ramakrishna, God alone knows what He means to do through a particular person. Now, continuing, Sri Ramakrishna is telling, where will your wife and children be if you leave the world? You must not try to upset the arrangement of God has made for you. See, all the things which you have got in your life is the arrangement made by God. By our egoistic tendencies, by our foolishness, if we disturb that, then God has done so much for us, all the arrangements, everything. Wife, children, house, education, business. So everything will get disturbed. So nicely Ramakrishna is putting it into the mind of Ramachandra Datta. What is that? Where will your wife and children be if you leave the world? You must not try to upset the arrangement of God has made for you. Everything will come in time. You have to have patience, you have to wait. Sahanam, titiksha. You have to wait. Sahanam, sarvadukkanam apradikara purvakam chinta vilaparahitam sa titiksha nigatyate. Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya tells Sahanam. You have to bear, forbear, wait. Do not be in a hurry. Everything will come in time. This simple advice of Sri Ramakrishna satisfied Ramachandra Datta temporarily. But later he raised the subject again. Now, earlier he had told with great love and affection. Now, when Ramchandra Datta persisted that he wanted to become a monk, now Sri Ramakrishna became a little stern, serious. What will you gain by renouncing the world? Living a family life is like living in a fort. It is easier to fight an enemy from inside a fort than from outside. Then Ramakrishna is giving a wonderful advice which will apply to everybody. Now, this portion of the advice, you have to carefully understand it. Now, when will we be ready to renounce the world? Everybody, anybody for that sake. Ramakrishna is answering. You will be in a position to renounce the world when you can bestow three-fourths of your mind on God, but not before that. What a wonderful teaching. I'll again go through that. You will be in a position to renounce the world when you can bestow or when you can give three-fourths of your mind on God. So now we are giving only half an hour or 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening. That's all. We forget God all the next 25 hours. In 25 hours, at the most, we may give half an hour or 1 hour at the most. But what about the 24 hours? So Ramakrishna is telling, you will be in a position to renounce the world when you can bestow three-fourths of your mind on God. Everybody can test yourself. If you have the desire, then you can test yourself. Have you, or are you in a position to give three-fourths of your mind, of 75% of your mind to God? Out of the 100, can you give 75%? And only 20% or 25% to the world? Then you are in a fit position to renounce the world. So, hearing in the words of Sri Ramakrishna itself, you will be in a position to renounce the world when you can bestow three-fourths of your mind on God. But not before that. Now, Ramachandra Datta was silenced. He resolved then to be an ideal householder, devotee of God. Soon after, Ramachandra Datta met Sri Ramakrishna. He started to read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. What is this Chaitanya Charitamrita? Chaitanya means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's. Charita means the life story. Amrita is nectar, the nectar of the life story of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, soon after Ramachandra Datta met Sri Ramakrishna, he started to read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, an authoritative biography of Sri Chaitanya written in Bengali. I told you recently, after finishing Durga Puja, Vijayadashami, Visarjana, immersion of Divine Mother in the Haldarpukur tank in Kamarpukur. That is where Sri Ramakrishna used to go and bathe as a child. And even after that, all the people would come to take bath there. So many incidences has come about Haldarpukur in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. great master. So there, the divine image of Mother Durga was immersed. I too had entered the water at that time, took bath there after the immersion or before the immersion. Then, after that, I went to Jairambati. Then I went to Navadvip. That Navadvip is the place of birth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is river Ganga flowing there. On the other side, it is Mayapur, because Ganga is changing the path. Our ashrama is very near to the old path of Ganga. It goes on changing. So that portion of the where our ashrama is, that is called Puratan, Prachina Mayapur. So another portion is the other Mayapur. So I visited all that place. I saw so many Gaudiya Matas, ashramas. Then in this Prachin Mayapur of Navadvip, we have the so many places associated with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As a small child, where he used to go and read in the Tall, that is the traditional Gurukula in olden days, where they used to get education, Sanskrit learning, and so many other things. So there is a very famous Shiva temple, Kali temple, Divine Mother temple, the Grama Devata temple. It is encased in a very big Vatavriksha, that is the banyan tree. It is very nice. So there, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a child used to go and read. And so many other places, the house of the wife of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where she stayed and did her tapasya, intense tapasya, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave up the family and took up sannyasa. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had even donated his paduka, the slippers, sandals, to his wife, and she used to worship that. And also an image made out of neem tree. That image is very nicely carved. So that was also given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Vishnu Priya. She used to worship that every day. She used to do a lot of austerities. Until last she stayed there. So I went to that temple. I was also allowed to touch that paduka, hold it in the hand, also keep it on my head of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ramakrishna used to recognize him as the avatar. So now it's very popular in Bengal, Orissa and other places. So they read the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So now it gives you a lot of devotion. It brings in devotion by reading that book. So this Ramachandra Datta met Sri Ram. After meeting Ramakrishna, he started to read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, an authoritative biography of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu written in Bengali. The more Ramachandra Datta read about that God intoxicated life, the more he felt that Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Chaitanya were the same persons. But again, Ram would have doubts. Once, at the request of Sri Ramakrishna, Ramachandra spent a night at Dakshineshwar. When he was alone with Sri Ramakrishna, he started looking at Sri Ramakrishna in wonder. So Ramakrishna asked him, "What are you looking at?" asked Sri Ramakrishna. To which Ramachandra replied, "Sir, I am looking at you." So now Ramakrishna asked him, "What do you think of me?" To which Ramachandra Datta replied, "Sir, I consider you as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." Sri Ramakrishna was silent for a moment and then said, "Well, Bhairavi Brahmani used to say the same thing. As As the days went by, Ramachandra Datta saw more and more of Sri Ramakrishna's extraordinary spiritual powers. Now, you saw some special incidents just now where Ramakrishna asked him, "What do you think of me?" So, Ramakrishna used to ask this question to almost all the serious devotees. Why would he ask that? What do you think of me? Earlier, I would get when I was reading when in the beginning, what is this Ramakrishna is asking about himself? Is he egoistic? Why is he asking about himself? Then I came to know the Divine Mother had shown him. So, with the reply, whatever the reply was about of that particular devotee, when Ramakrishna asked this question, "What do you think of me?" The reply would be the yardstick, whatever that person tells now about Ramakrishna, then that would be the yardstick to measure how much spiritual progress he had made in spiritual life. Whatever he answers now will be the yardstick, the measuring rod for Ramakrishna to know how much he has progressed spiritually. So when they would answer something that Ramakrishna would grasp, Divine Mother had told, that would be the measuring rod. That would be the progress of that devotee. That is the reason why Sri Ramakrishna used to ask, not to know that what these people are thinking or not to praise himself. That was not the idea. The real idea was Divine Mother had shown him whatever the reply by the devotee, by that Ramakrishna could gauge how much spiritual progress that person had made. That's why you see in the gospel, in the lifetime too, Ramakrishna asking many devotees this particular question, "What do you think of me?" So when Ramakrishna asked Ramachandra Datta, "What do you think of me?" So Ramachandra Datta replied, "I consider you to be Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." Sri Ramakrishna was silent for a moment and then said, "Well, Bhairavi Brahmani used to say the same thing about me." As the days went by, Sri Ramachandra Datta saw more and more of Sri Ramakrishna's extraordinary spiritual powers. And that's why gradually the skepticism, the doubts of Ramachandra Datta was replaced by faith because he started having proofs. Why? Because he had more and more of Sri Ramakrishna's extraordinary spiritual powers. That's why the skepticism and doubt of Ramachandra Datta was replaced by faith. Shraddha. One day, on the way to Dakshineshwar, Ramachandra Datta bought some jilpis, that is jalebi, a sweet which Sri Ramakrishna liked very much. So now you know Ramakrishna liked jalebis very much, just like Ganesha liked modaka. Each deity you see in our Hindu pantheon will like particular dishes. Why? They don't need it or they don't want to eat or they're greedy or they have that taste of the tongue. That is not the idea. They don't need anything. They have everything. They have realized the highest. They are God themselves. Why do they need this jalebi or modaka or some other sweets? It's because through that small desire they can keep their mind down to the earthly plane. And also the devotees, by fetching that, they can fulfill their desires and grow spiritually. There is a chance given by the Lord for us to serve Him. So now you came to know Ramakrishna liked jalebis. Ram bought some jalebis, a sweet which Sri Ramakrishna liked very much. While he was crossing a bridge, A little boy who was very poor, he was begging. So he saw that jalebi in the hand of Ramachandra Datta and he started begging for that. First, Ramachandra Datta tried to ignore that boy, but then a thought came to his mind that perhaps the boy was God in disguise, and so he gave a piece of that jalebi to him. After arriving in Dakshineshwar, Ramachandra Datta put the sweets in the master's room and spent the day there. So all the devotees, when they brought something, fruits and sweet, they used to keep there in the plate. And later on, either Sharda Devi or some other attendant would serve it to master. So he kept in the proper place that sweet and he stayed there in Dakshineshwar. Ram put the sweets in the master's room and spent the day there. In the afternoon, Sri Ramakrishna asked for some refreshment and Ramachandra Datta immediately placed that jalebis in front of him. Now, Sri Ramakrishna touched those jalebis and before taking it, he looked up. He then broke a few. Shaking his head, he expressed his unwillingness to eat them. Ramakrishna couldn't take that sweets. After this, he washed his hands. Ramachandra Datta was mortified. He could not understand why Sri Ramakrishna had refused his sweets. He was so upset that he took the jalebis away and returned home. After a few days, Ramachandra Datta came to Dakshineshwar again. And Sri Ramakrishna said to him, Ram, when you bring something to me, don't give any of it to anyone else beforehand. I can't take anything without offering it to God. I offer Ramakrishna, as I told you earlier, he had completely obliterated his ego. We know that the goal of spiritual life is perfect self abnegation, removing ego completely. That is the goal of spiritual life. Then whatever remains is God. Once the ego goes, there is only God. So Ramakrishna had completely obliterated, destroyed his ego. Divine Mother Kali, his Ishtadevata, used to reside in his body. So he never identified with his ego, he identified with the Divine Mother. So now, whenever sweet or anything came, he used to offer it to that Divine Mother who was within him. So now he couldn't offer anything which was already offered to another person to his Ishtadevata. That is the reason, though Ramachandra Datta didn't tell anything about that jalebi was given to the boy, the moment Ramakrishna touched it, he could understand that it was offered to somebody else before. That's why he shook his head and he couldn't eat it. He washed his hands. Now he is giving the reason. After a few days, Ramachandra Datta came to Dakshineshwar again, and Sri Ramakrishna said to him, Ram, when you bring something for me, any eatables or anything for me, don't give it to anyone else beforehand. Why? I can't take anything without offering it to God. And I can't offer anything to God that has been already offered to somebody else. Defiled by being offered to someone else first. This incident convinced Ramachandra Datta that Master was omniscient. What is omniscient? All knowing. Sarvagna. Omniscient is Sarvagna, all knowing. See, that happened somewhere on the street while coming from the sweet shop. But Ramakrishna could know it here. So he was all knowing, he could know anything happening everywhere, anywhere, anytime. So this incidents convinced Ramchandra Datta Sri Ramakrishna was omniscient, all knowing, Sarvagna. So now, what is this character called Ramchandra Datta? We are studying him from 2 or 3 classes. What did you see more in him? Skepticism, doubting nature. Even in the beginning, he used to doubt the existence of God. Gradually, coming into the company of Ramakrishna, he was giving up that bad thing called doubting. In English, it's called doubting Thomas. We doubt skepticism in everything. So that is the dominant character in Ramchandra Datta. So it was not so easy to put out that. So we can bring out that character and we can mend our life. We have that. All of us will have this skeptical nature, the doubtful nature. Doubt is a terrible disease. You know, Swami Vivekananda has written one song on Ramakrishna. Jaya Deva Deva Jaya 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 Deva Shakti Samudra Samutta Tarangam. So in that, one of the line is praising Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Vivekananda tells, this time as the avatara, one who was Rama, one who was Krishna, that he mentions. He has become Ramakrishna here. So in that he tells, what is the speciality of this avatar called Ramakrishna? What is he going to destroy? The asuras, the rakshasas, the demons, or the demoniacal natured people? No. This time the avatara is Samshaya Rakshasa Nasha Mahastram. You don't see any weapons in this avatara as Ramakrishna or Sharda Devi. They don't have any weapons. What is the weapon he has brought this time? Samshaya, doubt, skepticism. Nasha, destruction. Mahastram, the great weapon to destroy the Rakshasa, the demon called doubt. So doubt is a great demon. Ramakrishna has come this time to destroy this, to bring in faith. It is the opposite of faith. Doubt, doubting nature, skepticism is the opposite of faith. If faith gives us everything, if faith takes us towards God, realization, doubt takes us away from God. It leads to destruction. That's why you can see this character called Ramchandra Datta, who had a lot of doubts and skepticism. Through the help of Ramchandra Datta, how he changed his life, we can bring out the same character which is there hiding in us, and then we can remove this doubtful nature. So Shraddha, Lord Krishna tells, Shraddhavan lavate gnanam. So a person with faith, he gets knowledge. Then what is he telling about doubting people? Samshayatma vinashyati. The person always doubting, skeptical, doesn't believe, always negative. Samshayatma, doubtful person, vinashyati. He gets destroyed, he goes down in the scale of spiritual life. He doesn't get anything. We have seen people always doubting everybody, everything. They suffer and suffer hell. in the life. They suffer too much because they don't believe anybody, doubting everybody. If you don't have faith in your own kith and kin, in your own people, with your colleagues, in your guru, how can you survive? It will bring torture to your life. So Lord Krishna is telling, Samshayatma vinashyati, Shraddhavan labate gnanam. So Ramakrishna, this time as Avatara, Samshaya Rakshasa Nashamahastram, has come with the weapon of destruction of the doubting nature or the doubts or the skepticism. So now here, doubt is a terrible disease. It is told here as a disease, terrible disease, not ordinary disease. And a doubting soul suffers very much. I've seen it myself. They not only suffer themselves, they will make others suffer too. Samshayatma, doubting Thomas. So doubt is a terrible disease, and a doubting soul suffers very much. But it is hard to uproot doubt from the mind completely. Even though it gives us lot of suffering, it's a great danger, it is terrible disease. Somehow people don't want to give it up. They want to continue with that. Even though it gives us so much of suffering. But it is hard to uproot doubt from the minds completely. Every spiritual seeker has to pass through this dark night of the soul. In spite of Ramchandra Datta having so many proofs, so many instances happening showing the greatness of Sri Ramakrishna, which would create faith. But in spite of all those things seen and heard, his old habit of doubting, his old doubts and skepticism reappeared, making him restless and miserable. There's a saying in English, old habits die hard. If you made this an habit of doubting, I've seen many people. Every person they doubt, everything they doubt. Naturally, they will doubt even God too. So, old habits die hard. See, if this doubting habit, take this habit, remove, see what is the spelling? Habbit. You remove H out of it, the first alphabet. Abbit. What is that? A bit. Then take the next letter. Next alphabet, it's not, sorry, I told the wrong spelling, Habbit, that's all. So you remove the first letter H, it becomes a bit. Remove the second alphabet, A, it becomes bit. Then remove B, then it becomes it. So you go on removing out of the habit so many things, still something remains. Likewise, if you have made this habit of doubting, how much ever you try to remove it, you have faith, it remains. His old doubts and skepticism reappear, making him restless and miserable. In spite of the suffering, it makes us miserable, but we don't want to give up. We are so fond of it. We think that that is a very great nature, great quality, the doubting itself. They think they are so intelligent. But they get so much of beatings and difficulties, suffer, they become restless and miserable. In spite of that, they want to give up the doubting habit. Now, Ramachandra's old doubts and skepticism reappeared, making him restless and miserable. The world seemed to him like a desert. He went to Sri Ramakrishna to tell him his sad tale and to seek consolation as before. But this time Sri Ramakrishna cut him short with a curt reply. What can I do? It all depends on the will of God. Now, when the Guru himself doesn't respond, where will the disciple go? Ramachandra Datta went into still worst condition. Sir, all these days I have been looking to you for help. Now, if you treat me like this, what shall I do? Again, Ramakrishna was stern, and ignoring him, he told, I don't owe you anything. If you like, you may come. If not, you need not come here. The master's shock treatment immediately drew Ramachandra Datta into deep despair. His first impulse was to put an end to his life by drowning himself in the Ganga. But as he left the room, he thought, why should I commit suicide? I have heard that the name of the Lord is greater and more powerful than the Lord himself. That's true. Many of the saints have written songs on that. I have heard one of the great Dasa, just like Tulsi Das, Surdas, we have in South India, the father of Carnatic music, Purandara Das. He too, when he got little quarrel or angry with the God, he has written an Inda Stotra. ನೀನ್ಯಾಕೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಹಂಗ್ಯಾಕೋ ನಿನ್ನ ನಾಮದ ಬಲವೊಂದಿದ್ದರೆ ಸಾಕು. Why do I need you? Why should I depend upon you? For me, your name alone is enough. I don't want you at our core. So the Purandaradasa, he fights, he does that Ninda Stotra with his Ishtadevata Lord Krishna. I don't want you, go away. For me, your name is enough, more than enough. So likewise here, it's true, 100% true. Ramachandra Datta, he thought of committing suicide, drowning himself in Ganga. Then he thought, why should I commit suicide? I have heard that the name of the Lord is greater. The name of the Lord is greater and more powerful than the Lord himself. The name of the Lord, can you imagine? This is true, 100% true. The name of the Lord. That's why our gurus give us the mantra, the name of the Lord. Japa, mantra japa. That's why it's so powerful. It will automatically bring, the name itself will bring meditation, the form, and make the Lord true in your heart. It will give you realization too. It will give you Brahmagnana too. That's why the name of the Lord is powerful than the God himself. That's 100% true. So, Ramachandra Datta started thinking, I have heard that the name of the Lord is greater and more powerful, 100% true, than the Lord himself. And the master said that it was my good luck to have had initiation in a dream. I shall test the efficacy of the mantram today. He lay down on the northern veranda of Sri Ramakrishna's room and began to repeat that mantram silently. At the dead of the night, Master suddenly came out of his room, sat down near Ramachandra and gave him some advice. Ram was very happy. The Master emphasized that Ramachandra should serve the devotee of God. Now see, for your bad karmas and the doubts to go away, Ramakrishna is now giving the remedy. What is that? The master emphasized Ramachandra to serve the devotees of God. By serving the devotees of God, you can overcome all these problems. And that this would give him joy and peace. So, automatically, if it gives joy and peace, doubt and despair and all that will go away, melancholy. All the offshoots of the doubting nature, which makes us miserable, will go away. How? Master emphasized that Ramachandra should serve the devotees of God and that this would give him joy and peace. Did you hear the remedy, all of you? Please start doing it. On the contrary, most of us will be hurting the devotees of God by our harsh and rude words and ego, and will be creating more bad karmas. But serving them, making them happy is a remedy for so many ills. So I will read the wonderful words of Sri Ramakrishna again that may bring in faith. The master emphasized that Ramachandra Datta should serve the devotees of God. Why? And that this would give him joy and peace. Then suddenly the master returned to his room. So, what a wonderful thing. He repeated the name of the Lord, proved that it is more powerful. And now, after that, Ramakrishna has given a wonderful thing, solution to the problems of the ills of all doubt and skepticism. The master emphasized that Ramachandra should serve the devotees of God and that this would give him joy and peace. So, how to get joy and peace? By serving the devotees of God. Quite often, the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna would arrange festivals. Do you know? Ramachandra by nature was a little stingy, miser. In Hindi, it's called kanjus. Not spend money, only for selfishness, he and his family. Kanjus. So, by these things, that makes us have these nature. It will make you suffer. As Lord Krishna tells, by working hard and earning the money and cooking and eating for yourself without sharing with others, I call him a thief. Sharing is very, very important. That's called sacrifice. Avan, yagna, yaga is sacrifice, sharing with others. So miserliness makes us very miserable, unhappy, bring all these doubts, skeptical nature, all those things. So now giving this advice to give up this miserliness, to serve the devotees of God, even to spend one single cent will be thinking 10 times for others. But for ourselves, for our own kith and kin, for our own family, oh, we are ready to spend any amount. But for others, for the devotees of God, we go on thinking 100 times, doubting so many things. So that miserliness, conjuseness, this Ramachandra Datta had in the beginning, Ramakrishna is removing it. Quite often the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna would arrange festivals in their homes and invite Sri Ramakrishna and other devotees to come. At these gatherings, Sri Ramakrishna would talk about God and sing and dance in ecstasy, filling the whole house with the intense atmosphere of spirituality. The host generally bore all the expenses of the feast, including paying the carriage fare of Sri Ramakrishna, and sometimes hiring a musician. Now, Ramachandra Datta was known for his miserliness, conjuice. And when he started to calculate the expenses involved, he hesitated to invite the master and the devotees. But when Sri Ramakrishna set a date to visit his home, he had a change of heart and gladly began to make the necessary preparations. On Saturday, June 2nd, 1883, the full moon day of the Bengali month of Vaishakha, Sri Ramakrishna came to Ramachandra Datta's house. Ram felt so blessed on this occasion that later he would arrange a festival every year to celebrate that auspicious day. After this, Ram gradually started giving up that miserly nature, and he invited Sri Ramakrishna to his house many times and became so expert in festival management that other devotees would consult him before inviting Sri Ramakrishna to their homes. So, in this way, the Guru, see how the Guru works. In this way, slowly the master uprooted Ramachandra Datta's miserliness and made him a generous devotee. So, how the Guru works gradually at the level of the subconscious mind, he knows everything, he is all knowing. You can see how gradually he removed this miserliness. Slowly, Master uprooted Ramchandra Datta's miserliness and made him a generous person. After that, he became very generous. The day after Sri Ramakrishna's first visit to Ramachandra's house, it was June 3, 1883, Ramachandra Datta went to Dakshineshwar and received various spiritual instructions from Sri Ramakrishna. At 10 o'clock that night, Ramachandra Datta took leave of Sri Ramakrishna and went out. It was dark and cloudy. While he was still on the veranda, he noticed that Sri Ramakrishna was coming out of his room. Sri Ramakrishna suddenly came up to Ram and asked, "Well, what do you want, Ram?" Ramachandra Datta was utterly amazed by the question of Sri Ramakrishna. Suddenly Ramakrishna is asking, "Well, what do you want, Ram?" Ram was utterly amazed. He felt as if his whole body was charged with electricity. Although he realized that Sri Ramakrishna was standing in front of him like a kalpataru wish-shielding tree and asking him openly, "What do you want? I am ready to give." Ready to grant any boon that he wanted. He was at a loss to know what to ask from Sri Ramakrishna. He couldn't ask anything. He became like a dumb person. In the presence of Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual magnitude, he felt how petty it would be to ask for wealth or supernatural powers. Finally, overwhelmed with emotion, Ramachandra Datta replied, "Lord, I don't know what to ask for. You decide for me. You know what is good and bad to me. I don't know what to ask from you. Lord, I don't know what to ask for. You decide for me. Give me back the mantram now." When he told, "You decide what to do," and what is the peculiar thing Ramakrishna is asking? "Give me back the mantram I gave you in the dream." And Sri Ramakrishna, as he entered into Samadhi, immediately Ramachandra prostrated himself before Master and offered the mantra mentally at his feet like a flower. Sri Ramakrishna touched Ramachandra's head with his right foot And Ramachandra Datta also lost outward consciousness. He did not know how long they stayed in that state. Gradually, the master came back to the normal plane of consciousness and he took his foot away. Ramachandra Datta stood up. If you wish to see anything, said the master to Ram, look at me. Ram looked at Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna had taken the form of his chosen deity. Whatever was the Ishtadevata, now Ramakrishna told, whatever you want to see, you can see in me. Now, when Ramachandra Datta gazed at Sri Ramakrishna, he had the vision of his Ishtadevata in the person of Sri Ramakrishna. If you wish to see anything, said Sri Ramakrishna to Ram, look at me. Ramachandra Datta looked at Ramakrishna and saw Sri Ramakrishna had taken the form of his chosen deity, Ishtadevata. The form of God that was dearest to his heart was standing there in the person of Sri Ramakrishna. Then, after the vision, Sri Ramakrishna told Ram, you do not need to practice any more spiritual disciplines. Just come here, just come to me and see me now and then. While coming, bring with you a pice, means cent, very little, very minimum. Bring with you a pice worth of something as a present, that is more than enough. You need not do any sadhana. You come to me now and then and see me. Just come here and see me now and then. You do not need to practice any more spiritual discipline. Only when you are coming, bring with you a pice worth of something as a present. When we go to temple, when we go to see great people, we should never go empty-handed. After these incidents, after Sri Ramakrishna touched with his feet the head of Ramachandra Datta and giving that darshan of his Ishtadevata in his person, after these incidents, Ramachandra Datta was free of all restlessness. Moreover, his experience, that vision, convinced him that Sri Ramakrishna was an incarnation of God. Once in Dakshineshwar, the exuberant Ramachandra Datta expressed his belief to great devotee. Girish Chandra Ghosh, do you understand, brother Girish? This time, all the three, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda and Advaita Goswami, are united in the form of Sri Ramakrishna. Love, bhakti, it is devotion. Love is prema, bhava towards God. Devotion, bhakti and knowledge, gnana, are equally manifested in this present incarnation. Ramachandra Datta is telling this to Girish Chandra Ghosh. So after that incident, all that restlessness, all that doubting nature, skepticism went away. After this, Ram was free from all his restlessness. Moreover, this experience which Sri Ramakrishna gave him, convinced him that Sri Ramakrishna was an incarnation of God. Once in Dakshineshwar, the exuberant Ramachandra expressed his belief to the great devotee Girish Chandra Ghosh. Girish, do you understand? Brother Girish, this time all the three, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda and Advaita Goswami, are united in the form of Sri Ramakrishna. Love, devotion and knowledge are equally manifested in this present incarnation. A true disciple carries out to the letter his teacher's instruction. So that is Shraddha. Guruvakyasya Shraddha. A true disciple carries out to the letter toto. So that is Shraddha. A true disciple carries out to the letter his teacher's instruction, proving thereby his love for the teacher. The Master has said, those who serve the devotees, another word, another great teaching of Sri Ramakrishna, we will keep it in our heart. What is that? The Master had said, those who serve the devotees serve me. Ram strictly observed this commandment of Sri Ramakrishna, serving the followers of Sri Ramakrishna with great devotion until the end of his life. So he put it into practice. He didn't hear it and keep quiet. Immediately, up till the last breath of his, he practiced that. What was that great teaching? Which we all have to learn how we can come out of our skeptical nature, our doubtful nature, and our miseries can go. The Master's teaching, which we have to immediately put it into practice. The Master has said, those who serve the devotees serve me. So the commandment of Sri Ramakrishna, those who serve the devotees serve me. Those who serve the devotees serve me. Those who serve the devotees really serve Sri Ramakrishna. What a wonderful commandment which Ramachandra Datta put into practice immediately until his last breath. So that is called faith. Put it into practice, the words of the Guru. Guru Vakyasya Shraddha. So immediately he practiced it, and was it only for a short period? No, until his last breath. So with this wonderful commandment of Sri Ramakrishna, to serve devotees is to serve Ramakrishna himself. To serve devotees is serving me, that is Ramakrishna. So we will end our conversation with such a wonderful commandment. So serve the devotees, and you will be serving Ramakrishna himself, the God himself. What a beautiful teaching. We shall have to immediately put it into practice. Never use harsh words against the devotees or any people for that sake, because the Lord exists in them. Ramakrishna used to always tell, Bhakta, Bhagavata, and Bhagavan, they are all one and the same. Bhakta is the devotee, Bhagavata is the scriptures, and Bhagavan is the Lord. They are one and the same. Serve devotees, you will be serving the Lord himself. Serve devotees and you will be serving Ramakrishna himself. Commandment of Sri Ramakrishna, which Ramachandra Datta put it into practice until the end. So let us also practice this quickly. Brook no delay. From now, from this moment, we shall put it into practice. We will now end this session with a prayer. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Harihi Om Tatsat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Namaste. Om Namo Narayana.